The morning I walked down the aisle, my best friend wouldn't meet my eyes. I remember that detail more clearly than the flowers, more than the music, more than the way my hands shook inside my gloves. Everybody else was smiling wide. Practiced smiles meant for photographs and polite applause, but Lena stood stiff near the third pew. Her mouth pressed into a thin line like she was holding back words that might spill and ruin everything. I told myself she was just emotional. Weddings do that to people. Or maybe she was tired, or jealous, or scared of losing me. I had no idea she was already grieving. The church smelled like lemon polish and old hymnals. Sunlight spilled through the stained glass windows in soft blues and reds, painting my white dress in colors I didn't notice until years later, when memory sharpened into something crueler than truth. I clutched my bouquet, two tightly white roses, his idea, and focused on breathing. One step, then another. Don't trip. Don't cry. Don't look back. When I finally did look at Lena, just before the doors closed behind me, she shook her head. Just once. So small no one else would see it. I smiled anyway. Before all of that, before the dress, before the warning. Before the marriage that would split my life into a before and an after. My world was simple in the quiet way grown women's lives often are. I was 38. Divorced once, living in a narrow blue house with creaky floors and a maple tree that dropped leaves like gold coins every October. I worked as an office manager at a dental clinic, nothing glamorous, but steady, predictable. I liked knowing what my days would look like before. I lived them. Lena and I had been friends since college. 20 years of shared secrets, shared holidays, shared grief. She knew the sound I made when I was trying not to cry. I knew when she was lying by the way she tucked her hair behind her ear too many times. We had raised our children alongside each other, hers a boy, mine a girl, birthday parties overlapping, sleepovers spilling into Sunday mornings with cold pancakes and cartoons humming in the background. When my first marriage ended quietly, mercifully, Lena was the one who came over with soup I didn't eat and wine I drank too fast. She didn't tell me I'd be okay. She just sat on the kitchen floor with me until the night softened. So when I met Daniel, she was the first person I told. Where did you meet him? She asked, stirring sugar into her coffee even though she didn't drink it sweet. At the clinic, I said. He came in with a cracked molar and left me his number on the intake form. She raised an eyebrow. That's bold. He's bold, I said, smiling in a way I hadn't smiled in years. Daniel was charming and a practice way tall. Silver at the temples, eyes that seemed to listen even when he wasn't speaking. He brought flowers on the second date, remembered my daughter's name after hearing it once, and told stories that made me laugh without really knowing why. After years of being invisible in my own marriage, his attention felt like warmth after a long winter. He noticed things. Or at least he seemed to. He noticed when I cut my hair, when I wore my mother's old bracelet, when I was tired but pretending not to be. Lena noticed other things. He talks around questions, she said once after meeting him for the third time. Have you picked up on that? I shrugged. He's private. He's evasive. Not everyone wears their past on their sleeve, I said. A little sharper than I meant to. She sighed. The way she did when she knew pushing would only make me dig in deeper. I just want you to be careful. I am careful, I said. I've been careful my whole life. That was true. Too true, maybe. I had been careful through a loveless marriage, careful with money, careful with my daughter's heart. Careful not to hope too much. Daniel made me reckless in small, intoxicating ways. I stayed out late. I laughed loudly in restaurants. I said yes without checking my calendar first. When he proposed after 8 months on my back porch, under that maple tree shedding its last leaves, I cried into his coat and said yes before he finished asking. Lena didn't cry. She hugged me. long and tight, and whispered, "Are you sure?" I laughed it off. "Of course I'm sure." She pulled back and looked at me the way she used to when her kids were toddlers and I was about to do something stupid with a pair of scissors. "I need you to hear me," she said quietly. "Something about this feels rushed." "We're not 20, I said. "We know what we want." She nodded, but her eyes stayed troubled. "Just promise me you'll slow down." I promised. And then I did in single quotes T. The months before the wedding blurred into a carousel of cake tastings and seating charts. Daniel insisted on handling the finances. "Let me take care of it," he said, his hand warm on my back. I let him. It felt nice to lean into someone else's confidence. Lena grew quieter. She called less. When we did talk, there were pauses, long ones, where I could feel words pressing against the silence. Once, after too much wine, she said, "If something ever feels wrong, will you come to me?" "Nothing feels wrong," I said. She opened her mouth, closed it again. "Okay." I wish now I had asked her what she meant, but love, when you're thirsty enough, can make you ignore the taste of rust in the water. The night before the wedding, Lena knocked on my bedroom door. I was already in my robe, hair pinned up, nerves humming like live wires. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Tomorrow," I said, smiling too brightly. "After I'm officially married?" She searched my face, then nodded. "Tomorrow," she repeated. But tomorrow came with music and vows and a kiss that tasted like relief. And by then, it was already too late. Asterisk, the warning came back to me in pieces. After the wedding, like a song you can't get out of your head once you finally remember the words. The reception was held in a rented hall that smelled faintly of roasted chicken and floor wax. Paper lanterns hung from the ceiling, swaying gently every time someone laughed too loud or brushed past a table. Daniel moved through the room like he belonged there, greeting people I didn't know as if they were old friends. He kept a hand on my lower back, possessive but gentle, guiding me from conversation to conversation. Lena sat at the edge of the room. She didn't dance. She clapped politely during the speeches, her smile strained, eyes shining in a way that wasn't joy. When our eyes met, she lifted her glass just slightly and then looked away. I told myself I'd talk to her later. There would be time. There was always time. Marriage settled over us like a new coat, stiff at first and gradually softening. Daniel moved into my blue house, filling the empty drawers, hanging his jackets by the door. He reorganized the pantry, the garage, the finances. Asterisk, I'm better with numbers, he said, sliding a folder across the table one evening. "You've got enough on your plate?" I glanced at the spreadsheets without really reading them. The columns looked neat, orderly, safe. "Okay," I said. My daughter, Emma, was 16 and old enough to notice shifts in the atmosphere of a room, young enough not to know what they meant. She watched Daniel carefully, polite but reserved. "He talks to me like I'm 5. She muttered one night after dinner. "He's just trying to connect," I said. Though I had noticed it too. Lena came by less often. When she did, she watched Daniel the way someone watches a card game alert, calculating. Once, while he was in the shower, she leaned close and whispered, "Have you seen his tax returns?" I laughed. "Who asks that?" "I do," she said. "Because I care." "You're overthinking," I told her, gently but firmly. "Please stop." She stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. "I hope you're right." That was the beginning of the distance. Not dramatic. Just a gradual widening of space where comfort used to be. The first real crack appeared 6 months into the marriage. I came home early from work with a headache and found Daniel in the living room on the phone. His voice low, urgent. "No," I said, "don't do anything yet," he hissed. He turned when he saw me, his expression shifting instantly into something neutral. "Calm. I'll call you back," he said and ended the call. "Everything okay?" I asked at asterisk work stuff, he replied. You wouldn't want the details. That stung, though I couldn't say why. We were married. Weren't details supposed to be shared now? Little things followed. Mail he intercepted before I could read it. Accounts I didn't recognize. Conversations that ended when I entered a room. When I mentioned it to Lena over coffee, our first one-on-one in weeks, she didn't look surprised. I didn't want to be right, she said quietly. I frowned. About what? She wrapped her hands around her mug, knuckles whitening. There are things about Daniel you don't know. My chest tightened. Like what? She hesitated. I don't want to say the wrong thing. Say the thing, I said. Asterisk, she looked up at me, eyes glossy. I think he's using you. The word hit like a slap. That's unfair, I said immediately. You don't know him like I do. I know patterns, she said. And I know men who move fast, take control, isolate. He hasn't isolated me, I snapped. You're the one pulling away. She flinched. Because it hurts to watch someone you love walk into a fire. I stood up, chair scraping loudly against the floor. I didn't ask you to save me. She nodded, swallowing hard. No, you didn't. We didn't speak for a month after that. During that month, Daniel suggested we refinance the house. Interest rates are good, he said, laying out papers on the kitchen counter. We could free up some cash. For what? I asked. For life, he smiled. Travel, emergencies, our future. The house had been mine long before him, bought after my divorce with careful savings and cautious hope. Signing those papers felt like handing over a piece of myself. But he stood so confidently, pen poised, eyes warm. Trust me, he said. I did. The discovery came on an ordinary Tuesday. I was homesick, curled on the couch with a blanket and tea gone cold. The mail slot clattered, and an envelope slid across the floor. Daniel must have missed it. It was from a bank I didn't recognize. I told myself not to open it. Told myself trust meant not prying, but my hands shook as I tore it open anyway. The numbers blurred at first, then sharpened into something terrifyingly clear. A line of credit. And my name. Nearly maxed out. I read it 3 times, my heart pounding louder with each pass. My name, my address, my signature, at least something that looked like it. When Daniel came home that evening, I was still sitting there, the letter folded and unfolded until it was soft as cloth. What's this? I asked, holding it up. He froze, just for a second. But I saw it. That's nothing, he said too quickly. Just paperwork. You opened a line of credit in my name, I said. Without telling me? It was for us, he said, defensive now. I was going to explain. How long were you planning to wait? He ran a hand through his hair. You wouldn't have understood. That sentence landed heavier than any confession. Try me, I said. He sighed like I was the unreasonable one. I had some debts. Old ones. I thought I could clear them quietly. With my credit, I said. With our credit, he corrected. I thought of Lena, her silence, her warning. You lied to me, I whispered. He stepped closer. I protected you. The room felt smaller. The air thinner. In that moment. I knew the marriage I thought I had was already gone, and I wasn't sure how much else he'd taken with it. Asterisk. I didn't sleep that night. Daniel lay beside me, his breathing deep, and even one arm slung across my waist like nothing had changed. I stared at the ceiling fan turning slow, counting the rotations, listening to the tick of the clock on the dresser. Every sound felt louder than it should have, the house groaning, a car passing somewhere down the street. My own pulse in my ears. I kept seeing Lena's face in the church. That tiny shake of her head. By morning, my chest ached with the weight of what I didn't know. I waited until Daniel left for work before getting out of bed. The house felt different and the daylight less safe, like the walls had shifted overnight. I made coffee I didn't drink, then sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and the bank letter dot. My hands trembled as I logged into accounts I hadn't checked in months. One by one, I opened them. Credit cards, loans, lines of credit I didn't remember authorizing dot. It was all there dot my name. My social security number, my signature copied, practiced, forged with a familiarity that made my stomach turn dot by the time I finished. I felt hollowed out, used. I called Lena. She answered on the second ring. Are you okay? The concern in her voice undid me. You were right, I said, my voice breaking. About everything. There was a pause. Not the kind filled with satisfaction, but with sadness. Where are you? She asked. Home. I'm coming over. She arrived with her coat half buttoned, hair pulled back like she'd left in a hurry. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where she'd once helped me plan Emma's birthday parties, where we'd laughed and cried over burnt casseroles and bad dates. I slid the papers toward her. She read silently, her jaw tightening. This is bad, she said finally. But it's fixable. I laughed weakly. You say that like it's a broken sink. She reached for my hand. I warned you because I've seen this before. My sister's first husband did the same thing. The word husband echoed uncomfortably. What do I do? I asked. You protect yourself, she said. And your daughter. Emma. The thought of her future tangled up in this mess snapped something into place inside me. That afternoon, while Daniel was still at work, Lena helped me gather documents, deeds, statements, anything with my name on it. We made copies. She insisted I call a lawyer she trusted, just to understand your options. She said. The lawyer's voice was calm, professional, and devastatingly clear. Financial abuse is still abuse, she said, and it often escalates. I hung up feeling both validated and sick. When Daniel came home that evening, I didn't confront him. Not yet. I watched him move through the house kissing my cheek, asking about my day, flipping through mail like nothing was wrong. The performance was flawless that night. After he fell asleep, I went through his briefcase. I hated myself for it. Hated the way it felt necessary. Inside were receipts, burner phones, handwritten notes with numbers and names I didn't recognize. A folded document caught my eye. A pending sale agreement for my house, dated 2 weeks in the future. I sat on the bedroom floor, the paper shaking in my hands, my breath coming in shallow bursts. He had planned to sell my home, the home I had raised my daughter in, the home I had built after everything else fell apart. Without telling me, I didn't cry. Not then. Something colder took its place. The next morning, I called in sick to work. Then I called the real estate office listed on the document. Yes, the agent said cheerfully. We're set to list as soon as we get final signatures. You won't, I said, because I'm the sole owner and I haven't authorized anything. There was a pause. Ma'am, my husband has no legal authority to sell my property, I said, surprised by the steadiness of my voice. Consider this notice. I hung up and sat very still. That evening, I confronted Daniel. I waited until Emma was at a friend's house. Until the dishes were done. Until the house was quiet. I know about the house, I said. He didn't bother denying it this time. His shoulders slumped, like he was tired of pretending. I was going to tell you, he said. After everything was settled. You forged my signature, I said. You lied. You stole. I was desperate, he snapped. You wouldn't understand what it's like to have people after you. That was the first time I heard fear in his voice. Real fear. Who? I asked. He hesitated. It doesn't matter. It matters to me, I said. Because you married me knowing this was coming. He looked away. Silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. Get out, I said finally. He stared at me. What? Pack a bag, I said. And leave. You can't do that, he said. We're married. I can, I said, and I am. He left that night with a duffel bag and a face full of disbelief. I locked the door behind him and leaned against it. My legs giving out, Lena came over again, bringing takeout and quiet. You did the right thing, she said. I should have listened, I whispered. She squeezed my shoulder. You did, eventually. The fallout came fast, calls from banks, letters, threats disguised as polite reminders. Daniel tried to reach me, alternating between apologies and accusations. I didn't answer, with the lawyer's help. I froze accounts, filed reports, started the long process of untangling my life from his lies. It was exhausting, humbling. And then, one afternoon, Lena called me with a tremor in her voice. There's something else you need to know, she said. My stomach dropped. What? He didn't just do this to you. Asterisk, I closed my eyes when Lena said that, like I could stop the words from landing if I didn't see the world while they did. What do you mean? I asked. There was a pause on the line. I could hear her breathing, slow and careful, the way it got when she was choosing honesty over comfort. He has a history, she said. Other women, other marriages. I sank into the kitchen chair, the wood cold against my back. How do you know? I didn't want to tell you before, she said softly, because you were already married. And I was afraid you'd think I was trying to ruin your happiness. The word happiness felt bitter now. Tell me, I said. She exhaled. After you got engaged, something about him kept bothering me. So I looked him up, quietly. I have a friend who works in records. My chest tightened. Part of me wanted to be angry at her for digging. A bigger part was grateful she had. He's been married 3 times before you, she continued. Short marriages. Each one ended with financial disputes, foreclosures, lawsuits. One ex-wife filed for bankruptcy. The room felt like it was tilting. Asterisk, and you didn't tell me, I said. Not accusing, just stating. I tried, she said. So many times. But every time I started, you defended him before I even finished the sentence. She wasn't wrong. I thought if I pushed harder, I'd lose you, she said. And I couldn't do that. Tears slid down my face, silent and hot. I lost you anyway? No, she said immediately. You didn't. I'm right here. After we hung up, I sat alone with the weight of that knowledge. Not just that Daniel had deceived me, but that I wasn't special. Not chosen. Not uniquely loved or targeted. I was the next name on the list. That realization hurt more than the betrayal itself. The next weeks blurred into a rhythm of damage control. Meetings with lawyers. Phone calls with creditors. Paperwork that seemed endless. Emma watched me with worried eyes, asking careful questions I answered gently but incompletely. Is Daniel coming back? She asked one night as I tucked her in. No, I said. She nodded, relief flickering across her face before she tried to hide it. Okay, I should have noticed sooner, I thought. How she flinched when he raised his voice. How she stayed in her room when he was home. The public consequences came sooner than I expected. Daniel had underestimated one thing. How small our community really was. The real estate agent called again, not to push the sale, but to apologize. Word had spread through her office, then through the bank, then through church circles, school pickup lines, coffee shops. People talked. Quietly at first, then louder. A woman from my old book club called me one afternoon. I didn't know if I should say anything, she said hesitantly. But he tried something similar with my cousin. Years ago. Another message came from a stranger on social media. I think we were married to the same man. Each story echoed the same pattern. Fast romance. Financial control. Sudden collapse. Daniel stopped calling me and started calling the lawyer. Then, one morning, Lena sent me a link. It was a public notice, legal proceedings filed by one of his ex-wives. reopened in light of new evidence. Fraud, forgery, financial abuse. I stared at the screen. My hand steady this time. At the hearing, I sat in the back row, Lena beside me. Daniel stood at the front in a suit that didn't quite fit anymore. He looked smaller, older. When he saw me, his eyes flickered, not with anger, not with love, but with calculation, as if he were still trying to figure out what he could get. The judge's voice was firm, unemotional. Facts were laid out like bricks, each one stacking into something undeniable. When it was over, Daniel didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, the air felt different, lighter. I never wanted this for you, Lena said as we walked to the car. I know, I replied. You wanted me safe. She nodded. That night, alone in my blue house, I walked from room to room, touching the walls, the furniture, the door frames where Emma's height had been marked in pencil over the years. The house was still mine. So was my name. My future, my voice, healing didn't come all at once. It came in small, ordinary moments. The first time I laughed without feeling guilty. The first time I paid a bill and knew exactly where the money came from and where it was going. The first morning I woke up without dread pressing on my chest. Lena and I rebuilt too. Slowly, carefully. One evening, sitting on the porch under the maple tree, she said, I was so afraid you'd never forgive me. I looked at her, really looked at her, the lines at the corners of her eyes, the familiar strength in her posture. I don't need to forgive you, I said. You tried to protect me. She smiled, tears pooling. I wish I'd been braver. I wish I'd been quieter, I said. Long enough to listen. We sat there as the sun dipped low, the leaves rustling like applause. I thought about the woman I had been walking down that aisle, hopeful, determined, ignoring the warning in front of her. I didn't hate her. I understood her. And that, I realized, was its own kind of freedom. Asterisk, the strangest thing about surviving something like that is how ordinary the world insists on being afterward. The sun still rises. Groceries still need buying. Laundry still waits in quiet accusation at the bottom of the stairs. No one stops you on the street to acknowledge that your life cracked open and resealed itself crook. For a while, I resented that. Daniel's name faded from conversations faster than I expected. People moved on. They always do. His reputation, though, that lingered. Whispers followed him the way shadows follow light. Banks closed doors. Realtors stopped returning calls. Old acquaintances crossed the street rather than greet him. Justice, I learned, isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the slow shutting of doors. I never spoke publicly about what he did. Not out of shame, but because I didn't want my healing to depend on his downfall. Still, the truth had a way of surfacing without my help. One afternoon at the clinic, a woman sat in my office chair, hands folded tightly in her lap. She was nervous, eyes darting around like she expected someone to overhear us. I hope this isn't inappropriate, she said, but you were married to Daniel, right? I nodded, my stomach tightening. So was I, she said quietly. Years ago. We stared at each other, two women bound by a chapter neither of us would have chosen. I just wanted you to know. She continued, what you did standing your ground, it helped me. I thought I was foolish for so long. Seeing the truth come out made me realize I wasn't. Her words stayed with me long after she left. Healing, I learned, doesn't always look like peace. Sometimes it looks like purpose finding you quietly while you're busy surviving. At home, Emma began to relax. She played music again, loud, off-key, joyful. She invited friends over without checking if it was okay first. One night, while we were washing dishes together, she said, "You're different." Asterisk, I braced myself. How? Stronger, she said, but softer too. I swallowed hard. Is that a good thing? She smiled. Yeah, it really is. Lena came back into my life, fully, not cautiously, not apologetically, but like she'd always belonged there. Sunday dinners returned. Long phone calls. Comfortable silences. One evening, over soup that needed more salt, she said, "I don't think friendship is about agreeing all the time." "No," I said. "It's about being brave when it matters." She nodded. "Even when it costs you?" Especially then, I thought. The legal matters took over a year to resolve completely. Credit repaired. Documents corrected. My name slowly disentangled from his mess. It was tedious, humbling work, but every step felt like reclaiming a small piece of myself. Stopped rushing. That might have been the biggest change. I took longer walks. Let conversations breathe. Let decisions sit overnight before answering them. I learned to recognize the difference between charm and sincerity, between intensity and intimacy. Sometimes late at night, I thought about the warning Lena tried to give me. Not with regret, but with clarity. Love doesn't demand silence, Dot. It doesn't ask you to shrink your doubts to make someone else comfortable. Asterisk. It doesn't isolate you from the people who love you most. I hadn't failed because I trusted. I'd failed because I stopped listening to the quiet voices that cared more about my safety than my happiness. The maple tree shed its leaves again that fall. I raked them into piles, my breath visible in the cool air. Emma jumped into one, laughing. Scattering my hard work across the yard, I laughed too. Inside the house, I painted over the spot where Daniel's coat used to hang, changed the furniture layout, opened windows I'd kept shut for years without knowing why. The house breathed differently now, Dot, so did. I didn't rush into another relationship. I didn't swear them off either. I just waited content and the knowing that I could choose again when I was ready. One quiet evening, Lena and I sat on the porch, mugs warm in our hands. The world slowing around us. "You know," she said, "I used to think warnings were about control, about fear, and now?" I asked. "Now I think they're about love that's willing to be misunderstood." I nodded, the truth of it settling deep in my bones. Some lessons arrive gently, Dot, others leave scars, but the ones that stay, the ones that change you, are the ones you earn by surviving, and I had survived.